The stranger who changed everything, a story of first heartbreak and unexpected wisdom. The rain fell sideways that October morning in Gainesville, Florida. I remember because I kept hoping it would drown out the sound of my own breathing, heavy, panicked, desperate. My name is Marcus Webb, and I was 19 years old, sitting on the curb outside the University of Florida Student Center with my entire world collapsed into a text message. I think we should see other people. I'm sorry, just don't see a future with you anymore. 3 years. 3 years of late night drives to the beach, of her head resting on my shoulder during boring lectures we'd sneak into together, of planning futures that now felt like fiction written by someone else. Sarah was supposed to be my forever. Or at least, that's what forever meant when you're 19. I didn't go to my afternoon classes. I didn't go home either, because home meant facing my mother's questions, my father's disappointed silence, Kay, and Mrs. Chin from next door, who'd ask why I looked like a sad puppy with her thick accent and knowing smile. Instead, I drove mindlessly through the rain-slicked streets of Gainesville, past the orange groves and strip malls, just trying to find some place where the rain couldn't reach me. That's when my car died. It wasn't dramatic. No smoke, no explosion. The engine just gave a tired sputter on the side of Highway 34, about 5 miles outside the city limits, and refused to turn over again. I sat in the driver's seat for 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying not to quit failing miserably. My phone had 3% battery. My roadside assistance card was in my dorm room, and I was completely, utterly alone. Then a truck pulled up behind me. The truck was old, faded red Chevrolet, with rust eating at the fenders like a patient disease. An older man climbed out, maybe in his 60s, with weathered brown skin, salt and pepper hair, calloused hands that looked like they'd done an honest day's work every single day of his life. Car trouble. His voice was calm, unrushed. Yeah, I didn't look at him. I've got it handled. He didn't leave. Could feel him standing there, taking in the scene, the rain, my slumped shoulders, the dried tears on my cheeks that I'd been too tired to hide. Doesn't look like it, he said, not unkindly. Pop the hood. I don't know why I obeyed. Something about the way he said it, not like a question, but not like a command either. Like he was just stating fact, and fact was simply easier to follow than argue with. He worked on the engine for 15 minutes while I sat on his truck bed, getting rained on. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just worked, humming an old Spanish song I almost recognized, occasionally asking me to turn the key or pump the pedal. When he finally stepped back and wiped his hands on an already dirty rag, he looked at me. Try it now. The engine turned over. Not perfectly, but it caught. Thank you, I said, fumbling for my wallet. Kay, how much do I owe you? Nothing. He leaned against his truck, studying me with eyes that seemed to see through the rain and my tough guy act into the hollow place inside my chest. But maybe you want to come to my house. My wife just made fresh tamales. Your mother would want you to eat. The randomness of a complete stranger, knowing I needed to eat, needed someone to care, broke something in me. I nodded, not trusting my voice. His name was Roberto Castellanos. He and his wife Elena lived in a modest pink house with a small yard about 2 miles from where my car had died. Pictures of their 5 children and 12 grandchildren covered the walls. A Virgin Mary shrine sat peacefully in the corner of their living room, surrounded by photos of people I didn't know but felt somehow connected to. Elena brought out plate after plate tamales with red sauce, black beans, fresh tortillas, fresh lime wedges. She fussed over me, asked if I was warm enough, if I wanted coffee or tea, if I was feeling sick. She didn't ask why I'd appeared at her doorstep with her husband, soaking wet and hollow-eyed. She just fed me like feeding broken things back to wholeness was her life's calling. And it was there, at their kitchen table, that Roberto asked me the question that changed everything. What is it that hurts so much you can't talk about it? I told him everything, all of it. How Sarah was the first girl I'd ever loved, How her father didn't approve of me because my family was too quiet. It's too different. How her best friend, the one named Jessica, had always been around. Was always laughing at jokes that weren't funny. Always finding excuses to sit next to me. How I'd known, deep down, that something was wrong, but I'd convinced myself I was paranoid, jealous, unworthy of better thoughts. Alina touched my hand while I talked. She didn't interrupt. She just let me empty myself onto their kitchen table like water from a cup. When I finished, Roberto pushed back his chair and walked to a shelf in the living room. He pulled out a worn photo album, its pages soft from years of being held, and brought it back to the table. "It's this," he said, pointing to a black and white photo of a young woman with dark eyes and a brilliant smile. "It's Alina. In this," he pointed to himself, young and uncertain looking in a soldier's uniform, "is me. I was 22. She was 19. He flipped through the pages slowly. We had nothing. I had just come from Mexico with papers I wasn't sure would hold. She was from the neighborhood. Her family didn't want her with me. They said I was a laborer with no future. But look," he pointed to a photo of them getting married in front of a small church, his mother beside them, both sets of in-laws notably absent. We had our eldest son while I was working construction and she was cleaning houses. Our second child while I drove trucks. Tired. Fourth and fifth came after I'd learned enough English and mathematics to become a supervisor. Our 6 grandchildren came after my business thrived. Our 12 came after that. He closed the album gently. "But here is what I'm going to tell you, Marcus, and I want you to listen like your life depends on it, because maybe it does." He leaned forward, his weathered hands clasped in front of him. "The pain you feel right now, it is real. It is valid. Okay. But it is not a judgment on your worth." Alina squeezed my hand. "You think," Roberto continued, "that because she left you, because this Jessica girl had power you didn't, that somehow you are less than? That is the lie that young men believe. But I have lived 6 decades, and I can tell you the measure of a man is not who stays with him. It is not how many people think he is good enough. The measure is whether he becomes better or bitter." He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the rain that had finally begun to soften. "Your mother, she is proud of you. Yes, she works hard. Yeah, she does. She's a nurse, works doubles. And your father, he coaches baseball. He's trying to start his own clinic. Do they notice if their son is suffering? I don't know. Maybe not. But I didn't want them to." Roberto turned to face me. "That is the second lie I want you to throw away. You are not protecting them by suffering alone. You are stealing from them. You are saying their love is not enough to share pain with. You are saying you are ashamed to be broken in front of them. But Marcus," he pointed at the walls covered in family photos, "these people, all of them, they broke. They broke many times. They cried. They failed. They asked for help. And you know what? We are still here. We are still together. Because real family, real love it, is not small enough to break under one person's sadness." I started crying again. Not the silent, ashamed tears from the curb that morning, but real tears, the kind that come from somewhere true. Alina brought me a box of tissues and a fresh coffee. Roberto sat back down across from me. "Okay," he said, "let me tell you what you're going to do." I didn't go straight home that night. Roberto drove me to my car, which, he assured me, just needed a new battery and a timing adjustment, which he'd handle as a favor. I drove the dark streets of Gainesville, thinking about what he'd said, about becoming better instead of bitter, about letting people love me. The thing about going through heartbreak in college is that everyone knows your business. By Monday morning, 3 days after Sarah's text, the rumors had already begun their journey through the neighbor network and back to my mother's ears. I heard Sarah was seen at the library with that Jessica girl, my mother mentioned over breakfast the morning I'd finally come home, speaking in the careful tone of someone who's been briefed by Mrs. Chen and Dolores from 3 doors down. And that Jessica was bragging to people that she and Sarah had plans this weekend. My father said nothing. He just looked at me over his newspaper, his coach's eyes that had always been able to read what a player was thinking in a heartbeat, penetrating and patient. My mother continued, unable to help herself. Mrs. Chen said she saw you driving with an older couple the other day. She said you looked peaceful for the first time in weeks. Mom, I'm just saying what Mrs. Chen said. Mrs. Chen also said their granddaughter is very pretty and is studying to be a veterinarian. Mrs. Chen thinks you should. My father folded his newspaper. Let the boy eat his eggs, Maria. That was all he said. But later that afternoon, he asked me to throw the ball with him in the backyard, something we hadn't done since I'd started college. We didn't talk about Sarah or Jessica or my broken heart, just threw and caught and threw and caught until my arms burned and the Florida sun began its descent. You going to be okay? Finally asked as we were heading inside. I think so. I met someone he helped me see some things differently. My father nodded. That was enough for him. He understood that sometimes people needed permission to fall apart and permission to get back up, and that both usually came from strangers who had nothing to gain by caring. But the neighborhood didn't move on so easily. Mrs. Chen, the neighborhood sentinel, cited that my association with the Castellanos family meant, I was somehow betraying my Mexican-American identity by being helped by people who were actually Mexican. Never mind that my family was Mexican-American too, that we had the same roots and struggles. Mrs. Chen had decided somehow that this made me inauthentic, and she shared this opinion with everyone from the mailman to the grocery store cashier. Dolores, Sarah's mother's cousin, started spreading whispers about how I was bouncing back too quickly and how some people have no shame. She implied that the only reason I was recovering was because I was already looking at other families to attach myself to a pathetic boy, trying to replace a good family with another one, like people were interchangeable. But the worst came from Jessica herself. She found me on campus one Tuesday, cornering me near the student union with her new boyfriend, some senior, with a Letterman jacket and the kind of confidence that comes from never being questioned. She laughed when she saw me, that same laugh that used to make me uncomfortable in a way I'd never articulated to Sarah. Marcus, I heard you're like adopting the Castellanos family now. That's so sweet. Are you going to call them for permission before you date anyone? Or are you just done with girls our age? Her boyfriend laughed. Some people around us looked our way. I felt the familiar shame creeping in the voice, telling me I was the problem, that there was something wrong with how I loved, how I grieved, how I lived. Then I thought about Roberto standing in his kitchen with his photos. You know what, Jessica? Said, and my voice was steady in a way it hadn't been in weeks. I think you should ask yourself why you need to hurt me. Maybe you should talk to someone about that. And I walked away. She called after me with some insult I didn't catch. Her boyfriend laughed, and I didn't die. The world didn't end. My heart didn't break any further. I just kept walking. I started spending every other Sunday with Roberto and Alina. My mother, after the initial confusion, started sending me with extra dishes she'd made to share with them. My father asked Roberto to consult on a business decision for his clinic. My younger sister asked Alina for advice about a school project. The Castellanos family invited us all over for Christmas that year. My family and their sprawling, chaotic, beautiful, family-decorated cookies, played cards, and laughed in that way. You can only laugh when you've decided that people are worth letting in. Sarah got engaged to someone 2 years older than her the following year. I heard about it through the campus grapevine and felt nothing but a mild nostalgia for who I used to be. Jessica became a story people told at parties, the girl who peaked in college. Mrs. Chen eventually found something else to scandalize herself with. But Roberto's wisdom stayed. He graduated from the University of Florida with a degree in business. I took what Roberto had taught me, that pain was not a verdict. That family was chosen as much as born, that becoming better was always possible, and I built a life around those principles. I dated people, loved them, got my heart broken again by different women in different ways. but I never let that become who I was. I opened a small investment firm. I mentored young men going through their own heartbreaks, their own crises, their own moments of believing themselves unworthy. And always, when the moment was right, I told them about the stranger whose car died on Highway 34. His wife fed me tamales, whose kitchen table saved my life. Roberto passed away 5 years ago. I spoke at his funeral in front of his massive family, the biological one and the adopted one. The people his kindness had touched over decades of quiet, consistent grace. Elena told me he talked about me often, had told his children and grandchildren about the young man I found crying on the highway, who learned to come home to himself. Elena is still alive, still feeding people, still asking the important questions with her hand on yours. And I am still here, not perfect, not unchanged, but better. Better because a stranger stopped on a rainy day. It's better because he chose to care. Better because someone believed that my pain didn't define my future, and that belief, spoken with the authority of someone who'd lived through everything, finally gave me permission to believe it too. Every year on the day my car died, I think about the version of myself I could have become. The one who stayed bitter, who let Jessica's cruelty define how he saw women, who let Mrs. Chin's gossip convince him he was worth less than he actually was. I think about all the people I wouldn't have met, all the lives I wouldn't have changed, all the young men I wouldn't have been able to tell, you will survive this. Your worth is not determined by who leaves you. But I didn't become that version. And that's the whole story, really. Sometimes the people who change your life aren't the ones you plan to meet. Sometimes they're a stranger on the highway in the rain. Sometimes it takes a couple from another background, another generation, another story entirely to show you that your story isn't over, it's just beginning. That's what faith looks like, not what you believe about God or religion or destiny, too, but what you believe about yourself when someone else believes in you first. Roberto believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself, And that, more than any heartbreak or any lover or any dream I'd ever had, was what finally set me free. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of a stranger who changed your life, or if you're walking through your own rain-soaked highway moment right now, I want to hear your story. Subscribe for more tales of the everyday miracles that happen when someone decides to care, because everyone deserves to meet their Roberto. And maybe, if you're lucky, you'll become someone else's.